Oh, look, it's Fridays with Jarod on Bring It In, True Hoops, little Zoom from quarantine show. How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Can't complain. Can't complain.
All
All
good.
right, so there's the clock. It's 9 by 90. It's your show, Jarod. Your floor, your mic, your time.
Let's rock. Okay, so a Republican senator from Wisconsin is introducing some legislation about the Collegiate Name, Image, and Likeness. And here's what his new Athlete and Compensation Rights Act would entail. I want to go down to the part where it says, protect student athletes and their families from deceptive business practices or exploitation from unscrupulous actors. Well, the funny thing that he's not mentioning there is that the NCAA is in fact the unscrupulous actor in this whole thing that he's organizing here. Basically, he wants the NCAA to have the right to control whom talks to players, when they talk to them, and a clearinghouse so that the universities can keep the money. This is something that does not occur in the regular world, and they don't want to have these players called employees for the purpose of protecting amateurism. Protecting amateurism is a fancy way of saying keeping these kids broke, right? And so all the money stays in our pockets. Look, this is not new. We know that this is forced labor, right? And we're seeing it now. If you weren't clear before the pandemic what college athletics was all about, just look what's going on in college football and college basketball. The COVID cases rising like crazy, and these administrators are like, we don't care. It's about this money, my friend. We gotta cash these checks. And it's a sad state of affairs. So pay attention when you see senators like this writing bills that say we want to protect the players and have them their name, image, and likeness. No, they don't. They want to protect themselves and keep the money in hand.
Henry, please make a note that I want to revisit this.
Noted. So noted.
Yep. And write the word Fox, F-O-X. You'll understand why in a minute.
Okay.
All right. So yesterday, for the first time, I think maybe ever, a lame duck president didn't intercede, and a black man was executed for a crime he admits he committed a long time ago. There's a separate argument as to why his life probably should have been spared regarding the fact that prosecution, of course, kept testimony that jurors more recently have admitted, the ones that served, had they known, they might have felt differently. No surprise that this kind of thing happened in America. But on a bigger issue, we don't talk about the death penalty very much, but a long time ago, I had an opinion that I saw the movie The Green Mile, and it just convinced me I was right. Until we know we will never, ever execute an innocent man, we can never execute anyone, because the death of one innocent person is worth the exoneration of 100 others. And in most cases, they just sit in jail. It's not like you'll let him go free. But this has to be a mindset we have. We can never, ever take the risk of executing anyone that is absolutely innocent. And so for a situation like this, where he definitely committed a crime that he was accused of, and he admitted as much, we can't be executing guys like that, even if he admitted doing the crime, because it just allows for the potential that an innocent person is going to be executed down the road. And typically they're black. That's a whole separate thing, but we have to accept that. It's an unjust situation. That's the only way to fix it, is to get rid of it altogether.
Poor Devin, we're talking about the capitalist machine and now execution, and the chat is just like, preseason! Don't worry, Devin, we're going to get there. Hang in there, buddy.
We'll get there. We got to work our way into basketball.
All right, I want to recommend this book. I've alluded to it before, but it's really coming to me clear that it's outstanding. So here's the deal. Here's the book on the screen. The Hour Between Dog and Wolf by John Coates. And there's a lot of follow-up work. John Coates has gone on to become a fascinating person. But yesterday we published, I think, the most popular post in Troops Young History about all this stuff going on with the Rockets. And then I basically had a day of my phone ringing with people just having reactions to it, telling me stuff. I think there'll probably be a follow-up. But in those conversations, I spent a lot of yesterday recommending this book, because a lot of people are like, what's up? Why would owners, billionaires, power brokers act so crazy? There's just a lot of crazy going on in this story. This story is about this guy, John Coates, worked on Wall Street. He was a trader, and he noticed that, like, in the dot-com boom, some of his people who were on the trading floor with him would make like $5 million, $10 million on like a Tuesday. And they'd basically be insane by Friday with like drinking on the job, prostitutes, like strippers, like just everything would go super bananas, even though they're really smart, hardworking people. This is about what happens hormonally to make very successful people crazy. And over a decade, it actually makes your mirror neurons not fire normally. So you lose empathy. And he's got a whole institute that sort of studies this now. And they see evidence of it in presidents and prime ministers and Billionaires. Good read. I recommended to me by Ben Falk, who's obviously a genius, and I think about it all the time.
Awesome. On my list.
So following up on last week's 9x90 topic about Joe Biden and his transition team and what's going on, great article in the Jacobin about Joe Biden that said he'd follow the signs on the pandemic, and he is not. Look, he ran his campaign on being the opposite of Trump. And my big thing was, everybody, yes, we know that is the right thing to do, and that is he is correct, and we are correct in voting that way. But we must do more than just say, well, he's not Trump. And in the article, it says, but as Biden transition rolls on, there are already worrying signs that the incoming administration's pandemic response is going to rely on science in the same way the Democrats rely on science when it comes to climate change, as a useful bit of branding to set them apart from their opposition, but something to be largely ignored if they feel the solution is too politically unpalatable. Worse, there are signs that experts are, in turn, recalibrating their advice to better align with the political messaging. And like that is overall a problem, right? That we are changing what the science is saying to meet any political agendas. Look, New Zealand, Australia, and China, of course, we know, communist country, but have gotten the virus under control. Why? Because of stay-at-home execution orders in place where literally no one goes outside, right? Virus under control. Every epidemiologist and science piece of data says if we do that and have the second lockdown in place, we will be in a much better place than we are right now, which is not very good. But we're already having people backpedaling saying, well, we don't need a full lockdown. Well, not really. And people are dying at astronomical rates. Biden's got to do better, not good.
We can visit that subject too if you want. There's a lot to talk about. We got a lot of basketball to do. So
Devin.
I went to college with a guy named Bill Gurley. He was a walk-on for the Florida Gators, big 6'8", 6'9" dude, crazy smart. And he's now a billionaire and mostly tech stuff. He's no scientist, but he posted something on Twitter the other day, and it's basically hospitalization rates at all these colleges that had many, many, many cases in well over 1,000, 2,000. And I think there's 2 students that went to the hospital. And all he wrote was something, I think this deserves discussion. And of course, lots of people coming in and hammering in because it's not a real scientific study, which it isn't. And he was opening up a topic of dialogue as a smart man who made his money in tech, investing in companies, even like Zoom and whatever, and lots of other companies a long time ago. He was a personable, sociable, nice, trustworthy man that his teammates adored, and he still stays in touch with them. And we have lost the ability to have a discussion if we're on 2 separate sides. Now, we can lose our minds on some things, and we should. But on something like this, he was just throwing it out there. There's a tone that is lost through social media that I know I've been trying to work really hard at. I've been pretty good for years at maintaining a level of decency as I'm responding to people online. It's a good idea for us to do going forward because there's a lot of things going to be happening in the next few months, and they drive us crazy.
Almost there, Devin. All right, so this is an article that I was reading late last night in the New Yorker about Patrick Byrne. He was the head of Overstock, and he's basically become famous. I've seen his name in the headlines because he has had some crazy conspiracy theories talking about Sith lords who control the world and the back room and this kind of stuff. And I never really knew what to make of it. This article, though, kind of digs deep into his history of spouting craziness. And what has proved true is a surprising amount of it has actually borne out, which was like, whoa. And he says a lot of really scary stuff now. So, we hope that he's wrong. He dated a known Russian spy, Maria Butina, like a bunch of craziness in his life. However, I really had alarm bells going off as someone who hates to be seen as a conspiracy theorist and will be just ardent about being evidence-based. But when he was talking about the Sith Lord, here's the part of it. He was involved in a lawsuit, and the heart of his lawsuit was what he called the Miscreants Ball, after the Predators Ball, a nickname for an annual gathering held in the 80s at the Beverly Hills Hilton and hosted by financier Michael Milken, who in 1990 pleaded guilty to conspiracy and securities fraud charges. This is Drexel Barn and Lambert, the home of the wealth of a significant number of NBA owners, which I've written about a bunch of times. I'm like, oh my God, conspiracy theory guy is landing on the same damn place with the Sith Lords that kind of seems to be, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Like, anyway, so Yeah, there you go. I'm just leaving it there.
You're just to be clear, you're saying Sith Lords are investing in the NBA now?
Behind every great fortune is a great crime, my friends. We know. Look, we all love the NBA here. It's how we earn a living. It's my favorite sport. It's our favorite league. We love it.
Way better than football.
Way better. Yeah. David Aldridge wrote a story for The Athletic about, hey, we're restarting this league in the midst of numbers going crazy. Maybe we should delay the season start, right? So check that out on The Athletic. But, shouts to the capitalist machine, of course, because we know the number, right? $500 million is floated out there as the reason why the NBA decided to start it in December versus starting on MLK Day. And we have a few teams like the Pelicans, the Jazz, the Hawks, and the Grizz who say, we're going to have some semblance of fans in the arena, which sounds insane to me. Look, we don't want this league to shut down or stop because no basketball is not good for us. But in the midst of all of this, I wonder what Adam's thinking and where. I mean, I know he's thinking about the money, clearly. But, how do we continually prioritize that over what is happening around us and the lives and the health and safety of the most important part of your business? And it's been media week, the last couple of weeks, trading camps are about 2 weeks in. You guys know I cover the Nets. Spencer Dinwiddie had an awesome response to a question asked by ESPN's Malika Andrews, because Spencer's a thoughtful guy thinking about the pandemic and whatever. And he said, look, we're a capitalist organization. Like this is what we're designed to do. We're designed to make money. So we're going to play basketball. And that's what it is, my friends. Shouts to the machine.
ESPN did their top 500 rankings, and at number 75, Duncan Robinson. And so we've written about this before, and it's something I've talked about for a long time. Duncan Robinson, a year ago, no one was even sure would make the team. You could see on our document I wrote on there, his previous rank was NR, meaning not ranked. He could have been had by any team. And now he's a top 100 player. If you look at who he's ahead of, there's some really good players on that list. And I don't know if he's ranked too high, too low. That's not the point. The point is, right now, teams are evaluating players. There are Duncan Robinsons, not on every team, but on many teams that are going to get cut and not even looked at. And for whatever reason, I think it's because Miami feels really good about their G League process, and they got to know him pretty well, and that's to their credit. It's how the G League should be used. They made the finals in large part because he was one of the most effective shooting guards in the league and in the postseason and in the playoffs. And there's going to be teams that can have that, but will cut them to keep an old dude or a guy that was drafted high years ago that just hasn't made it. But maybe this time we'll figure it out and make him a star. And there's other dudes that were late bloomers or even Division III guys once, cut, going to Europe where they'll stay the rest of their careers, and they can help NBA teams win immediately. So just a reminder, there are Duncan Robbins out there. You just got to give him a chance.
So dying to make like a dad joke about it. Some of them are not Duncan. Oh, so stupid. Thank you, guys. Thank you for laughing. That's very kind.
I love that name.
All right, we just published this. David Thorpe, you get to talk later, but now I get to talk about you, which is fun. His method of predicting the season is to look at the schedule and pick a winner and loser for every single game based on everything in his brain. And Judy, if you scroll to the standings, we get some pretty interesting results. I like this method because now he's surprised by David, we can talk about this in a minute, but he was surprised that he likes Dallas so much, right? Look, we see the Bucks and the Lakers are really rolling. And then I thought it got particularly interesting here where the Pelicans are the lucky last team to sneak into the playoffs in the West. And the Bulls, who we recently wrote about as, what was the word we used? Hot garbage? I forget. But the Bulls almost make the playoffs. So yeah, no, this was, I love that David's brain contains all of these factors. And I think you'll find over time, he's as accurate as they get with these kinds of things. And after the 9x90, we can dig in a little more some of the findings there, but pretty cool. Yeah.
Anything jump out at you when you looked at it? Because I definitely was surprised at some things.
No, because I did a little bit of the win-loss game myself when the schedule came out, but I didn't go fully halfway. I think I did the first 12 or 13 games. And because in our group chat, Coach, you'd said, oh, then I got the Nets already by 10 wins that's when I started looking. And I was like, oh, I think we have the same number of wins. So look, it's the biggest thing we don't know is, of course, because we can't predict injury, teams gelling. And then the reason this only goes to the first half is because we have zero idea what's going to happen second half of the season, trades, whatever. And oh yeah, COVID, like, and the league possibly getting shut down again. So we are where we are.
Something crazy happened there. By the way, David has the Rockets like abysmal whether they trade Harden or not, which is people are gonna be upset about that.
And the big thing about that is we have no idea what John Wall's gonna look like, right? I mean, he could be great, he could be meh, he could be.
He dies when you said that. David feels like he knows, I think.
Oh, he's gonna be terrible or meh?
I don't know. I had heard. I had talked to some Wizards people during the summer, and they thought he was making progress, but it's been 2 years. Like it's not like riding a bike, unless you're riding a bike in a traffic jam with everyone going 100 miles an hour and then stopping short. Then it's like riding a bike.
Well, and the worst, John Wall's big, so that's good. In the data, like being big for your position does help you age well. But he is maybe as much as anyone going back to like Derrick Rose, a speed-based player, right? And those players do not generally age well. So unless he needs to really be a shooter now, I guess is the deal.
Yeah, and he was always a great passer, but it was a combination of his speed and passing. It was so elite, and it's just, how invested. Let's just agree that being invested in defense really helps a lot, right? Who's going to be invested on that team? They know at a moment's notice they could be part of a deal, right? Or their replacement comes in, because for all these veteran players, Houston cuts a deal with, they get rid of Harden and maybe a guy or two and bring in a shizzle of guys, right? Who are going to take.
You say shizzle?
Yeah,
okay.
Yiddish. They'll take their spot. So I don't, and a new coach, which normally I would like, and he's a nice man. I think he knows the game. I don't know if he'll be a successful guy or not in year one. I would guess that he wouldn't. But the thing, people seem really surprised at Toronto, as if Marc Gasol was like all league last year. Yeah, I know he's gone. He was the best defensive player, but they were loaded on defense. Zach Lowe tells a great story where when he wasn't sure which of the Raptors players to put as like top 10 defenders, he called around the league and all the starters got votes. Lowry got votes. Van Vliet got votes. Siakam got votes. Gasol got votes. Serge Ibaka is a nice player for them too. But I feel like they've got that we've talked about the Raptors before. I think they've addressed it to some degree, and they just have a bunch of young guys that are going to get better. As long as Lowry doesn't drop too much, which you never know at his age, but he finds ways to win games. He does all the little things. Yeah, I think the East also, again, who you play mattered. So I didn't rank schedules, but I didn't know Toronto would be that high up. I just kept thinking they're going to win this game. They're going to win this game, partly because of who they're playing. The East still has a lot of bad teams. Last year we thought it was a more parity-driven East. I don't feel that way now. There's some really bad teams in the East.
Yeah, Orlando's still pretty bad.
Orlando, Cleveland, Detroit. Hello.
You're also looking at, Coach, when you're talking about teams and you're figuring out what's what. Look, Houston may have more like top end talent than Toronto, but you're also looking at organization and culture, right? Tillman Fertitta and whatever that dumpster fire is, right? Versus
please don't call him Tillman Fertitta. Please use your nickname for him. I hear it in my sleep.
That broke boy owner in Houston, right? Like you have that culture versus Masai and Toronto's culture, right? Which night and day. So yeah, I'm gonna go with these people who have been together, who I trust. That crew, I don't know.
What do you guys think of Philly? Because I was higher on them. I wasn't high on them until I did the schedule. What's your thoughts on the Sixers?
You go first, Henry.
I've said it before, but I'm a Ben Simmons fan. I would not trade him. I think that his future is very bright. He's good right now. He has a giant known flaw, but who cares? Like, he helps you win.
So does Giannis.
What's that?
So does Giannis.
Yeah, so does Giannis. Exactly right. So I think that's the kind of player that's going to succeed in the NBA in the future. And, the guy you trade him for probably wouldn't have the body that has a chance to be an NBA MVP. So, honestly, my favorite thing about him, I can't tell you why this seems so important to me, but I love how when he gets in traffic with the ball and there's all sorts of defense on him, he looks calm as hell and makes good choices. I just feel like, ooh, that's going to translate well. I recognize this shooting thing is ridiculous, shades of Markelle Fultz, but maybe he figures it out. If he doesn't, he's still good.
Speaking of Fultz, Jarod, in that piece, I have a Harden trade. I am not one who thinks it's going to be to a contender necessarily. I think it's a big risk. It doesn't mean it won't happen. There's a big risk in taking him. I think Brooklyn would be crazy to do it. But to me, the team that makes sense would be a team that's trying to keep their job. An executive trying to keep his job in Orlando. And I'm not at all. I'm friends with those guys. I have no idea if they're on the bubble for get fired or not. But their roster doesn't look great.
No.
And their most exciting prospect is out again, Jonathan Isaac. If they could do a deal with Harden, Markelle Fultz is an average NBA player now when he's 22, and he's ascending. Right. Cole Anthony at one point was the number one point guard in the draft, but a top 5 guy. They still got him in the lottery. He's a talented player. Aaron Gordon is in the last year of his contract, and I think he's 24. I wrote it down. I forget, 24, 25. He's good. He's a very good defender, very fast. You can do some things, and Houston can get a pick too from Orlando with a bunch of young guys. Oh, and they can get their first round pick. Yeah, I'd say Cole Anthony. So, and then Orlando gets Harden and PJ Tucker and Ben McLemore. Yeah. And all of a sudden they're a playoff contender on a team that I don't think would be a playoff contender otherwise.
So if you're Houston, and then really quick, Henry, I agree with all your points on Philly. Look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You don't find all NBA offense and defense guys who are 26 and under. They don't grow on trees. Like those guys don't
grow anywhere.
Right. Like, oh, I'm just going to get one next year. No, like you have 2 of them, figure that shit out and figure out how to make it work. They're too good. I agree with you, Coach, on Houston and Orlando. Look, if you're Houston, I know it's easy for me to say it. Who cares about the PR battle? This guy's under contract for 3 more years or 2? 2 or 3?
I think 2.
Look, you get whatever you can. Like, you can play hardball right now. Don't move him unless you're getting back as much as feasibly possible, because when he just walks away and you get nothing, that's way worse. So don't move him wherever he wants to go. Move him wherever you want him to go. That makes sense for you, and get whatever it is that you need. Orlando is interesting, and I do think that like you go over there and you get those young guys. That's a whole different sort of outlook. But again, that is making the assumption that Houston has a plan and they know what they want to do, which
you're not getting a guaranteed star. I don't see it. No. I don't think so.
Well, you never, when you do, unless you're trading an all NBA guy for an all NBA guy, you're never getting equal value in return. That's just.
And one little thing that's been emerging is okay. So if you keep him, then part of my brain is like, oh well, the worst case scenario is you get $50 million off your books in 2 years, and now you're in the free agent game. Like, this is how the Heat got LeBron, right? Is they just got rid of everybody. Like, you could conceivably, we could look 2 years out, but I bet they have Christian Wood and nobody else maybe. Like, but you can accept. Here's the problem: nobody wants to play there. No. Like, for all the cultural reasons that, like, this is the problem. Like, this is why I actually like this fact. I don't like it. I feel sorry for everyone working in Houston now, but just being jerks does pay off. It doesn't pay off, right? In this way, right? It takes a long time, but they're repelling players now, right? Ask PJ Tucker. So to me, I think, this is where they can't really use that strategy. And there's one, maybe this is overthinking it, but the reason to trade him where he wants to go is because you'll get more from a team that can re-sign him, right? So if you're the Sixers or the Nets, then if Harden says, I will stay there for the long haul, then they'll load up the wagon with assets for Houston. But without that, they won't. So I think there's a little bit of, that's the leverage he has there, right?
But why would you believe he would do it? Why would you trust that? We see what Kawhi did after a year when they won the championship. I understand your point, and you're right that is how it may work. But why would a team trust they're going to be able to keep James Harden? Nothing against James Harden. Why would you almost trust anyone at this point?
Yeah. The only thing you'd be doing is if you are so convinced I'm going to win a championship in year 1, and really it's year 1, because year 2, it's the clock, right? Because he walks and you have nothing. So you have to be all convinced this is the one piece and we're winning it this coming year that we get him.
Yeah.
But players, to me, Kawhi did a real service to us those of us trying to prognosticate, as well as to players. They won a championship and would have been the best team last year going into the season had he returned, in my opinion anyway. They were loaded. They were not the best team because of what happened with Golden State, but they won the championship and Golden State had those injuries. Toronto would have been the best team again. And he still went to play for the LA Clippers. Just winning a championship alone isn't enough anymore. You can't, in the age of player empowerment, they can do what they want to do. And I'm all for it. I'm behind them 1,000%. You got to do what's best for your team over that window of time that's beyond a year. And I've watched Markelle Fultz. He's got a chance. Like, he might end up being, I don't know about an all-star, a really good player. He's 22, and he's dynamic. He and Cole Anthony could be a hell of a backcourt. Fultz is big enough to guard twos. Houston could get their backcourt of the future with Aaron Gordon, who's in a contract year. You get off his money with another pick, because you'll have to get at least one first-round pick. Maybe they'll get better than that. I don't think it's a guarantee. Everyone is acting as if it's guaranteed, and I'm not ready to say it's guaranteed. And even then, it might be for a year or two. Trade for a star who's in the last year of his deal, and he could leave. That's not a good deal for Houston to trade Harden into that.
It's Henry. You talk about this all the time. The setup of the NBA does not allow for teams to approach this in the right manner, right? Insofar as, because you're constantly worried about being fired and losing your job, right? So yeah, of course, thinking about the long term and the 3 and a 5 year window makes the most sense. But if your owner's got an itchy trigger finger and it's 2 years in a row, he's a laughing stock when the billionaires all hang out together, you're getting canned. And so you do the rash, quick, let me get this dude, and you just cobble together so that your team looks good, like it's got glitzy. And it's like, yeah, but we're going to be shitty because we don't have an actual plan. And maybe 2 or 3 franchises have stable ownership where they're like, we trust you. Do what you want, do what you got to do. We'll take the slings and the arrows, but these guys have to win press conferences and look good when they go hang out with each other. And it's like, does that really matter? Like, overall? But apparently it does.
I hope Miami doesn't do anything. I don't like him there at all. Doesn't mean he wouldn't win games. He's super talented. They wouldn't trade Jimmy Butler. But they'll trade Tyler Hero, maybe Duncan Robinson, and Ken McNunn. Like, they have good young players. I just don't see the fit.
Well, that's the thing you said right there, right, Coach? So James Harden, like, just in a vacuum, whatever number he is, 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever, best basketball player in the world. Yeah. He should fit anywhere because that skill set, we're going to win now. But it's his style of play, right? Which is problematic in an egalitarian offense like Miami, where Spo was like, move it, find it, open guy, etc. But Harden can do other things, right?
Sure.
You can use him like how Phoenix uses Book, right? Have him cut to the post. I mean, James Harden's 200 and a lot of pounds, right? You toss him in the post really quick. That's a nightmare. I don't want to guard him like that. You can do a lot of different things, but is he at a stage where someone can get through to him and be like, all right, you can still be all NBA, but it's going to look a little different. Like, can he do that? I don't know.
I want to piggyback on Jarod's question, David. One of the things I kind of learned about in writing the story was Mike D'Antoni. I guess there was some stress in the organization about Harden's role. When D'Antoni was like, no, we're going to clear that up. We're going to put you on the ball the whole time. And he went from, his scoring went up. I forget the numbers, but they're of course ridiculous, like 31 to 31.5 or something like that. And his assists went from 7 to 11, and the team won 62 games, I think. Was that right?
Yeah.
Was that the right move? Is that the right role for Harden?
Yeah, good question.
Well, so yeah, probably. I'm, me. To me, if you can win 50 some odd games a year and you're in contention, you've done your fans a great service. I think that the mistake Mike made is not that; it's he overplayed him. I don't care what James says. Take him out and deal with it. But we don't need to play you up 20 with 3 to play, or even up 12 with 3 to play. We're going to win that game now, and we need to develop our other guys. If we don't win the game, we'll learn from it too. So I think he overplayed him, and year after year after year, I think that carried an impact. But he's one of the most gifted offensive players of all time, for sure. It's inarguable to me. There's a handful of guys in the history of the game that can lead the league in scoring and assists. It's just that hard to do, and he's one of them. And by the way, amazing low post defender. So you can switch with him. He's not a great on-ball perimeter defender. He's better than what he typically shows if he wants to do it. He's exhausted from the offense. But don't try to post James Harden. And 2 years ago, he led the league in deflections, which is a big deal. It's a 24-second clock. Every second someone loses because the deflection is a second closer to the end of that possession, right? He's enormously gifted. So I think Mike helped him flourish like he did Steve Nash. I just wish he had limited his minutes a little bit more, game in, game out, even not in blowouts, even in close games. I think he needed to buy into the more rest thing. And I know Harden wanted to play more to jack his stats up, but that's where you've got to take the brunt of it as a coach and say, sorry, If you want to demand a trade, go and demand a trade, but I'm not going to run you into the ground. I would use that approach. I know you want to play more for all the reasons that are obvious. You're going to have to ask for a trade then, because that's not going to be me. I'm going to protect your long-term future, even if you're not mindful of it. That's what I would have a coach say.
And think about it, right? Like all that being said and all the, ooh, if we did this and did that, they were literally a quarter away from going to the NBA finals. And they're likely beating that Cleveland Cavaliers team. Like,
rolling that team. Yeah.
Like, that's the cruel nature of the NBA. And Henry, you say it all the time. Like, only one team wins in the end. 29, the rest of you losers. Like, that's just how it goes.
Well, you can't base it on championship or bust. I think it's a huge mistake. But you mentioned Harden's weight, and it made me think of a really special player we're going to be seeing this year. Not Nikola Jokic, because he's dropped a bunch of weight. The dude in Orleans.
Zion,
we have forgotten about him because they didn't make the bubble playoffs, whatever. We just saw a glimpse, and I have no idea what he looks like now. I mean, other than I saw video of him, he looks like he did last year. He needs to lose a ton of weight for sure, but right now, it don't matter. He is a freight train coming to the rim all year. And I think we're going to be witnessing an incredible special talent starting, I think, Monday. They play in Miami somewhere.
Well, you're hearing things, Henry. I know you're hearing things like, and we'll probably segue to JJ Redick, who's on the Pelicans. I mean, this is it. Zion, like, they're like, oh, he's in shape now. And it's like, good God. Like, it's like, they're all like, this dude's a real problem. Like, in shape, it's like he's a nightmare.
I don't believe that he's in shape. I don't believe anyone that says anyone's in shape until I see it. It's just talking points to me, and I get it. But it don't matter, is my point. He doesn't need to be in shape. He is like LeBron as a physical athlete, and he's got ball skills. If he can learn to shoot, it's a game changer. But just like Henry just said about Ben Simmons, he doesn't have to be able to shoot to be able to be like Giannis and LeBron early in their careers. Just you can't stay in front of them. And then the other thing is he likes to use his athleticism. That is a skill. That is a talent. He wants to tip dunk on your face all the time. Like, he's looking to make those plays. He'll get parallel. Like, he likes to soar through the air like Superman, right? He loves to play that way, like Dwayne Wade did. And it's such a joy to watch guys compete like that, especially when they're as talented as he is. So they've got Brandon Ingram. They've got JJ, of course, is back. They've upgraded with Steven Adams. Mm-hmm. He's good. He's a good player. He's been in a million important games. I think they got a real. I'm not saying they're making the playoffs because I did half the season, but they got a real shot.
David, every now and again there's an elite NBA player who's just not that lean, right? Who, like, most of these NBA athletes are just tiny waists and lean muscles, and you just they walk in and you're like, oh, that guy's unbelievably fit and eats a lot of salad, right? But every now and again, you're like, there's Charles Barkley or
Jokic.
James Harden doesn't look super duper lean, right?
No, definitely not.
And Zion's one of them. Like, are those players who are just different body types and could conceivably be every bit as fit? Or are these Draymond Green? Are these the players who just aren't as fit?
I think it's a fantastic question. The answer to me is they can be elite anyway, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't be more elite. Or I actually think they would be better. But even if they couldn't play better, they play better longer, and their injury risk goes down. Right? We saw what Draymond did. Was it 2 seasons ago? Right? When he lost a bunch of weight in the season. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not an accident. Jokic's ability down the stretch, as I said last week, like, they don't forget how to use their body when they lose a lot of it. It's a mental thing. They know how to do it. And so to me, if Zion can follow the Kevin Love program, he's still going to be powerfully built. It's just that's genetic, and he's trained hard. But and I think he will lean out. Like, it isn't strange to see it. As you age, you can lean out. You start eating healthier. I mean, I have stories of players that I've been going to breakfast, lunch, or dinner with for a decade. And what they ate for breakfast, lunch, or dinner when they were 22 is just so different, to the point where I had breakfast one time. I didn't want to have breakfast. I don't eat breakfast in the morning. But this player asked me to meet him for breakfast, and he dumped the salt on his hand and then sprinkled a little bit on his eggs. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You used to use a shovel to put salt on your food." He's like, "Yeah, my wife and I have really trying to cut salt back." This was before his first game of the season. This is what happens when you grow up, right? They're just human beings like the rest of us.
All roads lead to salad, man. Like, whatever happens, Everybody has something with a doctor, someone with a knee, or someone you end up with someone being like, nah, you just got to eat more leafy greens. Like that's what this
Right.
cut to the chase, just get to the salad. That's where we're all headed anyway.
I mean, do what your mom told you when you were younger, right?
Yeah.
Eat this out on your vegetables. It's not rocket science. But I think, again, this segues is so perfect on this show today.
All right, we got it nailed. Nice.
The JJ Redick has a podcast, right? The Old Man to Three, and he had Chris Paul on. And the conversation these two guys had was incredible. I encourage everybody to go listen to it. A little over an hour. Chris and JJ are extremely close friends, and you could just tell by hearing it. Like Chris is calling him Bubs the whole time. Like there's a little nickname for him when they get off the phone. And Coach, you'll love this. It's like, I love you, brother. Like all the sweet, like sappy things. But like they talk about the evolution of their relationship. How when they were in college, like they hated each other, right? Like Wake, Duke, that whole thing. Like it was just bad news. But Chris talks about the story when Doc called him when he was in LA and said, look, we got a chance to get JJ. What do you think? And Chris just said, get him, right? Like, because he knew that guy's a dog. I know how much of a competitor he is, et cetera. And they talked about how like him and Chris and Jada, it was his wife, and JJ and his wife, they all like hang out and watch Scandal together, and they're all best friends and go to dinner and have wine. It's like this very cute, like bromance-y story. But I just love how the two of them geek out on basketball and like just get real into the weeds about drop coverage. And God, I hate when we do that because then it's like, it was a really interesting conversation. And Chris talked about, to make the salad connection, how things started changing for him when he went vegan, right? He's like, look, I was talking about my body this way. And there were some edits that they did there. I think Chris didn't want certain secrets of like what he was doing to get out. Because, Chris Paul, like ultimate, like crazy competitor. But he said, as soon as I turned vegan and started switching things with my body, like I noticed like this is the difference, and I could be able to do this and do that. And you tell him that now. He's like, Chris, we're kind of older now. And he's like, nope, I'm not old. Like I can still keep playing this game till I'm whatever. And I love that connection and that like brotherhood those guys share, and just the level of appreciation and joy they have for the game, how much they love it, and how much they just love one another and geek out on this stuff, like for real. Like it was incredible. And that's the kind of conversations you want these athletes to have with us. But that ain't ever gonna happen, most likely, unless we have as close a relationship with them, which we know what that's like.
They're super professionals, right? Like this is what they do for a living. And no, they don't get to explain it in that level as they're doing their drop coverage or whatever. Like, their heads are doing this, right? They're like, they're not like, oh, coach told me to go over here. They're like, they know the whole thing is mapped out, right? Like David can talk about this more knowledgeably than I can.
Well, we talked about this. Henry and I did on the phone yesterday, Jarod. I watched an old documentary called Comedian. 2002, I think, came out. Jerry Seinfeld did it. And it's mostly a look at his life after he got rid of all of his old jokes, the jokes that made him $1 billion or whatever. And he started over with like 5 minutes and then 10 minutes. And he's visiting with Colin Quinn. And later I'm not to that point yet, but he and Chris Rock are best friends. And he talks to Chris Rock and Paul Rudd, not Paul Rudd. Who's the guy that was in Mad About You? Paul Reiser. Yeah. I think he's on the show if I remember. But it's really cool early in the movie, and I may write about this at some point in the documentary, where he doesn't even remember his lines. He doesn't remember the joke. He's like, and he's talking to now you can do this when you're a billionaire, Jerry Seinfeld, and the audience is laughing sweetly with him. And he's like, I had something, I just don't remember what it was. And he's working and grinding to get to just 45 minutes. And then an hour and 15 is what he wants to do. It's hard work. And none of us get that from that profession, but we all have to do it in our lives. NBA players are the same, right? They know for their avenue, their road, there's a path to follow, and they learn it. And I'm not a big believer in bringing veterans in to teach the young guys. It's easy to say, but my experience normally is the old guy wants to keep his job and get paid, but he emulates the right behavior. He models the right behavior, and the young guys can emulate that. Oh, he always comes in early. Oh, wow. We go out to eat. He's ordering grilled chicken and a side of broccoli. Like they see that, right? I have one story. A player was a rookie on a team with everyone was making like a $50 million contract. And I told my player, when you go out to eat with them, you can never order like they order because you're making $826,000 this year as a first round rookie in the early 2000s. And he came back and he said, Coach, he took me to lunch he took dinner one time at Fridays, and it was Applebee's, one of those places. And the waitress knew he was and said, "Do you want the usual?" And my player said, "This is where I always come at night. Like, I'll meet those guys up later and they'll buy me a glass of wine." I said, "Yeah, be very careful. Never, because they'll stick you with the bill." Like, there's a certain protocol you learn from those veterans, and they'll teach you how to play just because it makes them look better. If they're on the court with you, you're not going to get as much help. It's a competitive league, but they are experts at what they do. The ones that aren't don't last long.
I'll tell you what, though.
Like, the reason Chris Paul's still around.
These two dudes come up, and when I was doing all the OCD research, right? Like, I ended up talking to JJ.
Yeah.
And he's like, I forget now what the event was. I think maybe it's his birthday or one of his parents' birthdays in August. And most years, he was saying, if I remember this correctly, he struggles to visit them. Well, why is that, JJ? Think about August in the NBA calendar. Because JJ does 2-a-days every day, all the days, every day of the year. And I guess if there's a game, he doesn't. But so, like, and it's an issue with his wife, it's an issue with his kids. But like if they need to get in the car to drive, I forget where, it wasn't far, 2, 3, 4 hours to see his family, he is wigging out about that. I put it to you that that's a little much. Like, I think this is why he's in the NBA, but also he'd be a little better if he could take like 12 days off a year. I think he'd be even better, right? Because his ligaments would be a little fresher. He'd have a little more bounce in his step. Human bodies aren't really designed to work every day.
Yeah, I think he's extreme. He's extreme. I always try to get players to take 2 weeks off after the season. By day 10, they're in withdrawals. Almost always they're in withdrawals. And I had one player who we used to always say, "Okay, you're going to come see me. I'll make up a date." He used to not live here. And he would come visit, and I would say, "Okay, be here." Let's say it was July 10th, I'm making up the date. And he would always surprise me a couple of days early.
Yeah.
And it was very sweet that he was doing, and I didn't know he was coming. And he arranged with my assistants. He would come in the gym. But the truth is, he just wanted to get back on the court. It really wasn't about surprising Coach Thorpe. Right. It's so sweet. No, I wanted to get back to working on his game because everyone else is. And you're competitive that way. And that's something that's every sport has this, just like every writer obsesses about their writing in a good way. It's hard to be an artist. You have to take a lot of pride in your craft.
It's also a skill to like be Dwayne Wade driving a golf cart and drinking wine out of the bottle. like, that's a skill that you also want. You can do that a little bit if it's the right time. Well, maybe you shouldn't drink and drive.
That's my bad.
But you can, there's a time and a place to not be on. I feel like it's like you need gas in the tank, and the best athletes have a lot of gas in the tank. But that doesn't mean you have to push the gas pedal all day, right? You can push the gas pedal, when you need it.
I want to bring up Jarod's first point.
Yes, Fox.
NCAA, yeah. So we talked about the NCAA, and it's a delicate thing for me. I have a lot of friends who are head coaches in the NBA, and I have players that I've helped that are both playing football and basketball there. But the easy way to think about it would be it's like the fox guarding the hen house, but that's really not accurate. It's the fox keeping the chickens or the hens from being eaten by the other foxes. They want all the money, right? The fox is guarding the hens from the other foxes because he wants all of it, right? Hey, little foxes, go over there, go play over there, and just keep getting the hens right for lunch and dinner for the rest of his life. That's what's happening.
This was the first time learning of what you were talking about, Jarod, and I was reading it on the screen. But my thought was, why now? Why is this now? And then I suddenly had like a ding, ding, ding thing, which is like gambling. Mm-hmm. So the revenue models for all sports are changing if people gamble on them, right? That's the big new money, right? And so the reason we don't have like the alternative to our current shoddy, like everything's on a whisper and a handshake system of basketball development. It's because we don't invest in like European soccer has like clubs, right? And they'll have, they'll sign you when you're 14, 15 and you go to school in some trailer next to the field half the day and whatever. And all in all, it seems fine. Like those people seem fine. They have perfectly good lives, but it costs the club a ton, right? So we haven't footed the bill for that, right? We're just like, no, we'll just let them make some money in the NCAA, and NCAA can pay for this with scholarships and this and that. And it's all kind of shoddy. But now maybe this Wisconsin senator is, I think maybe now it's like, no, we need to codify this and FTC this and have it organized, because if the people in charge of all those players are underground, then they could potentially be the intermediaries for whatever has to happen with the gambling world, right? Like, that feels like to me what's changing now.
No doubt. Like it's, it like everything else in this country, it was, these systems were created a long time ago, right? When the lay of the land was way different than it is now. And like everything else, the systems themselves slow or reticent to any possible change, right?
Yeah.
And so you have this constant, reality of the current situation with old monolithic like legacy, and it's just constant like car crash, butting heads, butting heads, butting heads, butting heads. But my thing, blow it all up, baby.
Yeah.
I want Jarod to bring us into the Kyrie discussion, but just to wrap on the NCAA thing, if we had nothing but quality programs, which I would argue is the opposite of a Dabo Sweeney-led program, they win a bunch of games. But if we had a bunch of men and women who were making a bunch of money, but mostly caring about their kids, I don't mind if you make a bunch of money because you're caring about your players. I feel very differently when we'd all be in a different place. I just don't see much of that. When I do see it, I'm overjoyed that these guys and women, they understand their role in helping these young people develop into whatever it is they're going to be. They're not all going to be pro players. 1% is, or whatever the percentage is, but we don't see enough of that. And I wish the NCAA would focus on that. They're also worried about agents as well. And if you just take care of the right coaches, making sure they're taking care of the kids, everything falls into place. But yeah, so Jarod, let's talk about Kyrie, because Henry hadn't seen the latest, but although he's probably caught up now.
So, as I said, media week started last week and training camps opened. And so, I'm doing all the Zoom calls like you are, Henry. I'm sure Coach, you're probably doing a couple too. And by the time we get through Thursday, I'm like, oh, Kevin Durant came out first day. Like, I'm like, we haven't heard from Kyrie yet. Like, what's going on? But then you figure out maybe Kevin front loads, Kyrie back loads, and then whatever, we move on. And then we get a statement sent out from Kyrie last Friday that's basically alludes to the fact that he's going to let his play on the court and his actions off the court speak for him. And he's going to either limit or really avoid talking to the media all season long, which of course we all know is a problem because part of your contract mandates that teams make you available for media conversations after games and after practice. Okay, fine, whatever. Kyrie puts a statement out. I'm not speaking, whatever. Now it's been 2 weeks now. Kyrie's still not speaking. Well, there's fines in place if you don't see. As you can see, $25,000 fine to the Nets and Kyrie each. Kyrie then goes on his Instagram, puts out a quote from Malcolm X, and it's just like, oh, Kyrie, why do you keep doing this stuff? And then it's basically like, I hope the money that is taken from me, gets used for, more important things, and we want to help the world and yada, yada, and all that. And it's interesting because I got into a back and forth with a bunch of people, Kyrie defenders on Twitter, which of course that was bad on my part to start, but that's how that goes. And it's just like, you are not helping yourself, my guy. Okay, you don't want to talk to the media. Look, we all know this. If my job was dependent on I have to get up and answer the same inane questions day after day after day, that shit would annoy the hell out of me too. Okay, get it, fine. If it's a thing where it's causing you anguish or there's some mental health component, cool. Coach had mentioned this. Work with the team in the league, right? Behind the scenes. I don't want to have to do this. Can we figure out a way to, okay, fine, whatever. Let's make that happen. But you said you want your play and all your actions to speak for you. Yet every time you go on social media and post something, it now becomes fodder for 24 hours, right? Because I got 78 shows that have to fill up content. Bleacher Report has to aggregate it. 9 million people have to talk about it. And we're freaking talking about it on our show, right? Like, this is the thing. So part of me is like, Kyrie, you kind of like this because you're creating the controversy. If you really don't want to have anything misconstrued, your first statement, now you say nothing and zip it. But you're putting shit out, which means we have to respond to it, right? When you put something on social media, whether you do it consciously or subconsciously, you want reaction. That is the reason why you put it out there. It is a like, click, share economy. And let me see if people are going to like this. What are they going to respond to? That's why you do it. Why else are you putting stuff out there unless you want people to know and react? So this is Kyrie, just being, silly flat earth guy.
I can't defend the current media setup. Like, it's a mess, right? It's even messier on Zoom, but like it's intolerable. It's hard to listen to, right? Where it's like what really made the difference for you guys in the third quarter? Like, basically the game is like, hey, I have a job. I'm playing roles here that I don't really believe in, where I have to file something by 11 p.m. tonight, and it needs to fit a certain thing. It needs to have paragraph like 7, 11, and 14 with a quote from you. Like, let's play the little game, the little puppet show where like you do this thing. And I can see that both parties it would be right to just blow it up. That said, like, I don't think that every player just managing it themselves is the answer. Honestly, in no small part because it's just very problematic. And that it leads to problems for players among others. But B, it's not effective enough. It's not popular enough. It doesn't elevate the league. Like, not as many people are getting excited about the sport from this as they are from the cover of the New York Times, I guess. So to me, there's like a little bit of like, we do need to have a better thing. And I think Kyrie's thoughtful and smart and is frustrated by the charade of it all. But like, and as am I, right? But this is a mess, as you point out. It's just poorly executed. And I think it's honestly like, this is a rookie coach who's trying to fill the room with love. And and I don't think Steve Nash is used to being unpopular or the bad guy, right? Like, he's been kind of in the sunshine his whole career. But now you're just creating his first headache where he looks like he's out of control, and it looks like it's impossible not to wonder if Kyrie will also be doing whatever the hell he wants on the court or in practice or what I mean? Like come on, like, have some. It is a team game, right? Like, do a favor for Kevin Durant, do a favor for Steve Nash, do a favor for the Nets. Like, just figure out a way to play along.
I'm with you, Henry. And really quick, Coach, before you go, Bilal, yeah, I get it. That's why they get. And I'm not a pocket watcher. Like, and it's like whatever. These guys, they're tops of their craft. They should get paid whatever they want. But the money is what you get for the part of the job that sucks, right? Like, that's what the money's for. For the part that's like, and again, I agree with Henry. The whole back and forth. I hate Zoom call. It's stupid. I hate it, but it's what it is.
So I read, I probably said before, Bob Woodward actually wrote an amazing biography on John Belushi called Wired. And then many years later, I remember when John Belushi died, I went to go to my high school state championship soccer game. I have some buddies who are the best players on the team. And we were in a little general, which is kind of like a 7-Eleven. They don't exist anymore. And we got the news, and it was devastating. We loved John Belushi. I used to watch him at SNL in middle school, and then he died. And then years later, Chris Farley died. And I read one of the biographies about him. And in both cases, after reading those books, I read them back to back, by the way, because I didn't read Wired until many years later. I realized that if someone had just said, hey, you got to get off this bus. We're all making money off you. And it's not good for your mental health, and it's not good for your addictions. And so we'll not make the money on you, but you're going to live. And maybe one day you can revisit, maybe not, but you'll be alive. And they didn't. They all lived on his money and his fame, their fame and talent, and they're both dead, and they'll always be dead. So I'm not suggesting Kyrie's in that mold. I am suggesting the human mind is a frail thing. And so if indeed that there is issues caused by talking to the press and playing the game that you guys describe, well, it should be a way to opt out. And I actually find most journalists to be very reasonable, and they should be able to opt out without having to get any real explanation. And then, like Jarod said, just stop. But if you want to get mad at the Bear for asking these stupid questions, and then when they stop asking the questions, you keep poking them and kicking them, well, you're asking for it. And so here's what it looks like. It looks like a crash and burn, because Boston was better without him. Okay. Cleveland without LeBron, nothing. If the Nets situation goes haywire, they ain't blaming KD. So understand that. Kyrie, the target's on your back, and you're making it bigger with bold exclamation points all around it by doing what you're doing. Think wisely, my man. Think wisely. Stop being the guy they're talking about, except for what you do on the court, especially defensively. That'd be great. And enjoy the sunshine, because that'd be great. I have Brooklyn doing better than I expected. And if Brooklyn finishes top 4, which may sound blasphemous to people, I don't think they'll necessarily finish top 4. But if they do, they're going to be dangerous as hell in the postseason, as I write, because it means they figure some shit out, right? Nash won't be a rookie coach anymore. Durant, clearly, if they're finished top 4, has figured some stuff out. Kyrie, I don't want to play that. I don't want to play KD in the playoffs. That's for sure. So that would be fun for Kyrie to be part of that. And that's if I knew him, which I don't. It'd be, if you want to enjoy April, May, June, July, that means in December, January, February, March, just let your actions on the court speak for themselves and either play the game off the court or don't, but don't be the middle guy and poke the bear. That's a mistake.
And Henry, you know this. Look, most of us are reasonable, as Coach says. We are, but there are media people who are like, "Oh, Kyrie, this is the game you want to play," who are going to be vindictive now about this, right? Who are literally going to start doing things that he does not. The thing that you hate, you talk about, is happening now because you're doing this, right? Yeah. So it's a slippery slope. And honestly, part of Kyrie's thing is that, and again, my interactions with him has only been in those kinds of scrums and settings, right? He purports himself as someone who's a deep thinker and, an intelligent person. And I said this to Henry off live one day. He ain't Confucius. So let's not go all the way crazy and feel like this is like, the smartest man in the world. But I think there's a way in which he wants to have his humanity shown. And look, as players, I get that. He's still pissed, I'm sure, and I've heard, I'm sure you've heard the same, from that Woj piece that came out before the bubble about calling him the disruptor, right? That is like one of the big linchpins in starting this whole thing. And I get it, because so often they are treated as commodities, right? And not as human beings who have thoughts about things beyond basketball and who see things differently, and right. And they want to be able to have that control. And that's where the social media piece comes in. But again, if that's the position that you want to present from, it now opens you up for all these other things when you do something like, hey, let's question, things that come our way, and you say things like the earth is flat, right? Like that doesn't help, right? Because all it does is it makes you the unreliable narrator, and now we can keep coming and throwing darts, and not us personally, but people in the media who want to do that to you. So it's just, it's problematic.
I mean, I bet you if everybody's media duties were to talk one-on-one with Jackie McMullen, we'll be fine.
Yeah, because they love her.
Yeah, or but also you get to be an authentic human, right? Like you get to have some foibles and, and you get to be on it, whatever, fine. But it is a minefield, right? Like, in fact, you're like a typical, I don't know, these are friends of ours, but there are, in a typical locker room, there's more than one person who would love for the player to say something that's impugning the coach. Mm-hmm. And then they'll probably take the coach's side in the way they phrase it, because the coaches are probably more important source day in, day out than the player, and on and on. Or maybe that Woj story doesn't come out if Kyrie's represented by a different agent, right? And Kyrie knows more about there's this kind of there's a lot of dirt here. And so it is like a minefield, that particular setup. And it's nothing new. Kyrie's not a dummy in wanting to avoid that. I remember very clearly, this dates me a lot, but when Tony Kukoc was the new Philadelphia 76er, I can picture it in my head. We're in this weird side part of the stadium, and Tony's over there, and Karen Frascona, who's the head of PR for the Sixers at the time, is just like, it's in your, she doesn't think I can hear this, but she's like, it's in your contract. You have to go over there. And he's just like, nope, not doing it. And I don't remember if he did or didn't, maybe 9 seconds of disappointing, or this is, Rasheed Wallace with his both teams played hard, whatever. The whole league doesn't want to do this, and often they haven't. Kyrie's just one of 100.
I mean, the other thing is, right, to your point, look, who's the player in the league that the media loves the most? Probably Steph Curry, right? Steph doesn't say a mumbling thing at any press conference or anything. Parse through when he's asked questions. Says nothing. That's your other option, right? You can just go up to the podium and be, both teams played hard, and just give that. And just, all right.
It's in the movie. It's in the movie Bull Durham, with Randy Shane's favorite, because of Costner. But it's also in a very underrated musical called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds. Going back to my days in the 70s, 80s, growing up in my house, we liked musicals. And the guy playing the governor,
house, you guys.
the guy playing the governor of Nevada does a press conference. He's amazing. He's also in Tootsie. He's a great character actor, and he's like, ooh, got to do a little sidestep or something like that. And he's just dodging questions, but he's playing the game, as politicians do every day. And let's face it, athletes are politicians in many respects for that reason. They just want to play the game. So on the court, you want to play the game. You got to play the game off the court too. And again, I'm sensitive to Kyrie's issues, whatever they are, but you're just making it bad for yourself. And honestly, we just want to talk about basketball with the Nets.
He's
They're
also
in-
young. I mean, like honestly, prime fame Kobe Bryant just was like a star in this sense of what David's saying, right? Like so funny you ask that. Like he was just like he gave just a little, anyway, we're about out of time. Anything you guys want to add?
Just, hey, games tonight. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Go, Devin.
Be safe, everyone. Enjoy the games.
Thanks, guys.